Welcome to Branding the Business of Sports in Iowa. This event is sponsored by the Iowa Work-Based Learning Coordinators and is hosted by the Iowa Intermediary Network. We have a terrific group of professionals joining us today who are ready to share their passion for the profession with you.
Thanks, Anne. I am going to go ahead and let our panelists introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their career path, possibly, and kind of share about their history in sports and how they got into their career path. So I'll go around my screen.
My name is Katie King. I am the head softball coach as well as the student senate advisor at Iowa Lakes Community College. And so I kind of have a different career than some in athletics because I not only do the athletic side of things, but I also do some student leadership on campus as well. So my time is split 50-50. And how I kind of got here, coaching was never kind of in my plan. I was going to be an elementary school teacher and decided right before I was supposed to go into the real world that I didn't want to do that. And so I came back to the school that I had played softball at. And started as a graduate assistant. So with that, I was assisting the head softball coach as well as doing some housing duties on campus. Did that for a year and a half, and the position opened up at Iowa Lakes, and I applied, and thankfully I've gotten it. And so I've been here now for 7 years.
My name's Amy Lane. I'm the director of marketing at Drake University, and my career path, I went to Central College and played basketball, so I knew I always wanted to do something in sports and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So my senior year, I did an internship at Northwestern University in Chicago, and I interned in their marketing department of their athletics area and really enjoyed it and kind of just took off from there. Once I graduated, I did several internships, kind of moved around the country. I was at Florida Atlantic University, the University of Oregon, Colorado, and Charlotte, and then got the opportunity to come back to Drake, kind of where I was originally from, and have been here for 9 years now.
And Joe can introduce himself and tell his career path and how he got into his career in sports.
Thank you, and thanks for having me today. Excited to be here and talk sports. It's a privilege and an honor to be here, so thank you very much. My name is Joe Green. I'm the president of business operations for the Waterloo Blackhawks of the United States Hockey League. We are a junior hockey organization, a member of USA Hockey. Our players are 16 to 20 years old. And most of our players go on to play collegiate hockey before they turn professional. This is my 7th season with the Blackhawks and 15th season overall working in sports and a combination of hockey and baseball. I'm originally from a small town in Kansas and got into sports, started in broadcasting, realized pretty quickly that there aren't a ton of opportunities in that area, and was in radio sales, advertising sales for a short time before they said they were starting a hockey team in Topeka, Kansas. And to be very honest, I had never watched hockey. I grew up in the gym. My dad was a high school basketball coach, so played about every sport you could imagine, but had never watched hockey or participated in it. But I got offered a job with a team in Topeka in 2004, and have been in it ever since. So love being a part of working in sports, and excited to be here and share more of that with you today.
Great. Thanks, Joe. As you mentioned broadcasting, I think I'm going to turn it over to Keith and let him introduce himself.
My name's Keith Murphy. I'm the sports director at WHO 13, the NBC affiliate in Des Moines. I've been there for more than 25 years. Anchor the nightly sports and have hosted a weekly sports and pop culture show called Sound Off. I also have a radio show each day. It's called the Murph and Andy Show on 1460 KXNO, which is a iHeart radio station in Des Moines. And like many people in my profession, when I was young, I thought I was going to be a pro athlete. I didn't realize how far-fetched a dream that was for most people, definitely for me. And I'm old enough that when I was in high school, the thought, this is pre-ESPN, which is hard for kids to imagine, but the thought didn't even occur to me that you could be a professional broadcaster. We had 3 stations in each city, big city in America. And for whatever reason, it didn't occur to me that, oh, I could be one of those guys. So when I was in college and playing football as a scrub and got injured, somebody talked to me about, you could think about being a broadcaster, and I changed my major, and it was the best thing I ever did professionally. And I'm thankful that somebody pointed me in this direction, because I think the other major I had far too much science and math, and I don't know if I could have made it to the finish line. So glad to be with you today.
Great, thank you. Ted, you share with us your.
Well, I think I mirror a lot of what Joe and Keith just said. I was a multi-sport athlete in high school and had an opportunity to attend university and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I know I was pretty good with numbers and thought I could be like the world on fire as an accountant. Didn't really give much thought. I had a few tryouts, but once you get to that point where the baseball scouts say you're right here, but you're not quite there yet, and so I mean, I realized early on, but I always had that passion for the game and all games, really, and quite honestly. It was a friend of mine that pushed me into some sports management. It was my SID in college, and forever grateful for Scotty for doing that, because we talked through a lot of things, and he helped me kind of push me into it a little bit. So I changed majors, and at the time, the University of Wisconsin system had a sports management, two non-teaching Phi Ed majors, sports management and exercise fitness, and took the sports management route, and I've been doing forms of baseball for the last 40 years. I've never had a real job. I've always been running baseball teams, and in some of the markets I've been in, I've been fortunate enough to work with some peers in other sports. Was able to help out some of the, and Keith and Joe, you might remember this, when Memphis was trying to get a pro football team, the Oilers wanted to go up there. Helped work some NFL exhibition games in Memphis and some NBA games. So really, before the Oilers moved to Nashville, and then before the Grizzlies ever became an NBA club in Memphis, was fortunate to do that. And I've had a lot of wonderful times in this industry, and tried to sway my kids away from it. But I've got two now that are in professional baseball that are going to be working in. One's in Birmingham, and one's going to be working with the Brewers this summer as a intern with the grounds crew. So as much as I tried to sway them away, they didn't listen to their old man. But that's their passion. That's their passion, and that I hope is one thing that comes up in our conversation today.
So for me, I did athletics from a very young age: basketball, volleyball, softball, basically anything you can think of. And I felt like I learned a lot from all of those sports about how to be as a person, my personality, work ethic, things like that. And so I really wanted to give back and kind of help that in other young women. And so that's something that's super important in our program, as we talk a lot about. We're not only trying to make you a better athlete around here, but a better person, make you employable in your future. And so for me, that was really important to be able to kind of help the younger generations and young females to be able to be strong, independent women too.
And I just grew up playing sports, and kind of like Katie said, all those lessons that you learn, you kind of wanted to, and being competitive, kind of wanted to stay around that. So in the marketing field that I'm in, we get to interact with the student athletes, and essentially just try to have a positive impact on their experience. And part of my job is to try to get fans to our games, which obviously helps them have a fun experience when they're on the court or field playing. So it's kind of fun to just give back in a different way, but still be involved in sports.
All right, very good. Do either of you have a special story or something that has been meaningful and kind of stuck with you in your career, or a special accomplishment?
You got one first, Amy, you can go.
I'm
gonna think.
Yeah, I think just, having been in the industry long enough, anytime you can kind of do a first somewhere is always a cool experience. So, coming back to Drake, one of the things that a lot of women's basketball programs do, but Drake had not done before I got here, was, you host your kind of your kids game where you invite all the local elementary, middle school students. You kind of, you know, you play at 11 a.m. type of game where they can essentially just go on a field trip, kind of make it educational as well. And we started that event here, and I guess pre-COVID, kind of the year right before COVID, we actually were able to get that event to a sellout of the arena. So it's just a unique experience that we were able to provide, you know, to our women's basketball team, to play in front of a sellout crowd, which is something they don't normally get to do. So that has always a kind of a rewarding experience.
I've had some players that while they're here, maybe don't make the best life choices or grades or things like that. And I actually just got a message from a girl a couple weeks ago, like it finally clicked for her. She's playing at another school now and understands why we did things the way we did it, or what our goals were and how that impacted her and how it made her who she is. And so being able to kind of see that light bulb turn on, even if it's not while they're at Iowa Lakes, but eventually turn on for them, is kind of a really rewarding experience too.
So you're talking about your kids, and this is an audience for younger students. What type of education do you think is useful in a career in sports, or kind of particularly maybe sports marketing, since that's the theme of this?
Well, I used to think that was like the cat's meow, and that sports management was simply, that's what you had to take to do it. And in the early years, that seemed to be the way it was going. Nowadays, in my industry, we've got an influx of lawyers and accountants and that have a passion for baseball, and they're working in that selected area. So you might have an accountant that gets burnt out at, you know, pick an accounting firm in the state of Iowa that's like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, but I always love sports, and they may be involved with a hockey team or a baseball team or some sort of sports affiliation as a job, not as a volunteer, not as you know, just helping out, but this would be as an actual job. Chefs, you know, food industry in sports is taken off. People don't just go to the game anymore to watch it. They want to be entertained. They want to be, you know, dined and wined in some cases. And so, you know, you don't have to be a Michelin chef, but you can definitely use your culinary arts to come into the stadiums and arenas and things like that. And I think that's been the influx that I've seen as different occupations have come in, and that's great because it just makes the experience all that much better.
Keith, how about for you? You talked about changing a major and kind of going through that process, and your kind of journalism and broadcasting side of the process.
Right. I was a broadcasting major. I did a major in journalism and broadcasting, but we are finding more and more people in our profession that do come from other degrees in college for various reasons. And the broadcasting business is ever changing and changing quickly right now, because it's not those 3 stations in each city anymore. And now we're asked to not just do the nightly news or host a radio show, but you have to have a presence on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And though I'm not on TikTok, more and more people are all the time. And those are all forms of broadcasting. It's going digital fast. I mean, if you look even at, say you're watching an NFL game, you might be watching it on your phone or your iPad. It's I have a teenage son who, even when we have an 85-inch screen available out in our big family room for football, he still wants to watch it on his iPhone. It's hard to get him off his iPhone. So things are changing quickly, and the ways to get into those jobs are changing too, because it used to just be a straight path, and it'd be through journalism and broadcasting, and you would go to be a broadcaster. Now there are people from all different walks of life and backgrounds and majors that are finding their way to various digital platforms. And it's happened so quickly that in some ways the business has not even caught up how to monetize it or how to find the best people. It's going to be ever changing, and it's something that students will have to be part of that process as they move through to find out how to get to those places where they want to get to. I mean, when I was in college, people were just trying to become the kind of the version of what I am, the anchor on a nightly newscast. The guys in the broadcasting business, a lot of kids don't even watch the local news anymore. They're trying to get to a digital platform, or they're learning, instead of doing 30-minute videos, that the videos need to be 30 seconds or 1 minute. So it's changing quickly, as are all the platforms. So I don't think broadcasting is going away. I think it's actually expanding. It's just everybody's trying to figure out how to get to the various platforms.
On that, on the heels of what Keith just said, if you saw some of the football action, the NFL action, there was actually a separate broadcast Nickelodeon did, and all to draw the younger crowd.
Right.
Completely. You can argue whatever you want to with ratings, but it was solely for the intent of bringing in a younger audience. You know, the slime, the green goo, and all that stuff that I used to watch with my kids when they were younger. It solely marketed towards that.
Joe, kind of following up on that, with that note, you deal with younger athletes. I mean, I know you have college age, high school age, even sometimes on your teams as well. How do you deal with that social media with their brand? I mean, not only your brand as a team, but the athlete's brand. How do you have that incorporated in? How do you work with that as a team? How do you allow athlete endorsements? How does that work as part of your brand as a management philosophy in your sports?
Well, again, our players are roughly 16 to 20 years old. So you're right. These are younger players that live with billet families. They're not on their own. They're in households with host families, usually hundreds of miles away from home. So what we try to focus on here is development, and it's not only development on the ice, it's development off of the ice as well. So as it relates to social media, as it relates to growth as a person, or developing yourself as a better leader or a teammate, or a good person in the community and giving back, those are all priorities for our organization. And social media is a big part of that. And so we do some training with our players about kind of the do's and don'ts of social media and what to be aware of. What to look for, and what really just understanding that world, which is a complicated world, as you can see by everything on social media, and some of the things that these players have put on social media. Not only players but coaches who have posted things from the past that have come back that cost them their jobs. So there are lots of examples out there for that type of thing. What we also try to understand too is we can also learn from our players of that age, right? We talk, Ted and Keith talked a little bit about attracting that younger audience. Well, we can help better understand that by talking with our players to find out and understand what videos they're watching, where do they get their news from, what social media sites, what online platforms are they tuned into. And so we can, it's not only us developing with them, it's our organization continuing to develop and learn and change and evolve, so that we can better improve our fan experience as a whole, whether that's in the arena on game night with entertainment, or through our social media platforms, or things that we're doing out in the community. So I think it really goes both ways in terms of always being responsive, and kind of rolling with the punches, and continuing to evolve with our product.
Anybody else have anything on kind of social media's impact on careers in the sports world, and kind of then athletes in the sports world?
You're not kidding. That's really,
yeah, it's immeasurable, social media's impact, and it can be long lasting too, as Joe just said. And that's the thing I try to get through to not only the younger people I work with, but our interns and even my own kids, is think about what you put out there before you do. It's going to live forever. It has the potential to. Don't be reactionary. Don't be emotional. Make sure you've given some thought to what you put out there on social media, because what you're what's in your head now as a 17-year-old may not match the person you want to be or your place in society at 27. Give it some thought. If you don't want your mother to read it or your grandmother to read it or your kids to read it 20 years from now, don't put it out there. And it's a huge deal right now. And one of the challenges, I think, for social media, and one of the ways I've tried to evolve my maturity a little bit, is to try not to react to everything as some nameless, faceless person. I think many people have lost the civility of having a face-to-face conversation and reacting to somebody as if they're another person. Many people react in ways they would never react if they were face-to-face or even on this Zoom call right now. And that's something I've tried to get better at, and tried to help others get better at who are in my little orbit, is try to picture another person. Don't just try to picture what the best snapback you can come up with to put them in their place, because sometimes those things can backfire on you. So we could probably sit here and spend the entire day talking about all the benefits and pitfalls of social media, but it's a huge one, and it's for kids. I don't know how they navigate it, the ones who can successfully. Props to them. When I was a 17, 18-year-old knucklehead, some of the thoughts that went through my head, I am glad they're not out there. I'm glad there weren't camera phones at some of my college parties when I didn't have the maturity to sometimes act the way I should have. These kids, there's a lot of benefits to all this stuff, but boy, there's a lot of holes they can step into. And I think it's really important that people talk to them about those, because it's real. I mean, when we hire somebody, we go back through their social media, and so does just about every profession right now. I want to see what's out there, what could be something that harms the brand of the new place that's trying to hire you. It's a real thing. So it probably needs to be emphasized even more, if anything.
The great thing about the whole new society and the way things are, and Keith, you're into it probably much more than Joe and I are from the team side, but or on the media side, we're on the team side. But still, it echoes true that I tell my kids, you know what, if you don't have the guts enough to say it to their face, don't put it on any sort of social media, and it's going to come back and haunt you. So, and Keith, you and I are probably in that same age range where, we had not 8mm film that and Polaroids, and that was it.
Mhm.
And nowadays it's take out your phone and start recording, and it's worldwide in 10 seconds. And again, having kids at my age, I'm an older dad, and I tell you what, I'm blessed that way, because they're enlightening me to things that I had no clue of, and it's helped me in my business here, and I've got young staff. But you're right. I tell you what, it's ruined a lot of careers. It's ruined a lot of ball players who now have to go back and apologize. And it's I tell my kids, if it's in your heart and it's going to come out of your mouth. So to me, you got to have a clean heart and clean mind. And I think that's, if any message is out there that we can portray to the young adults out there, I think that's it. It's gonna come back, and really you just got to get your head and your heart right, because we're in a society now where people are going to nitpick you apart, and we see it every day. Your opinion doesn't match with my opinion, so you're wrong. Well, that's not necessarily right. It's just a difference in opinion, and that's the respect part, where you have to respect people's opinion. You may not always agree with them, but at the same point, it's a respect, and it's not a us versus them mentality. It should be, okay, I see this problem this way, you see it the other way. Where's the commonality? Where's that common denominator? And the common denominator is we're human. We make mistakes. We have faults. We have issues. We have different opinions, and I think sometimes, at least in my opinion, that's lost on a lot of situations where people don't respect the other people's opinions, and that's sad.
I think it's had a huge impact. When I got into this industry, it really was probably when it was sort of really starting to take fold. So I've really gotten to see it change over the years, and it's gotten to the point now where a lot of athletic departments and other jobs too. But you know, a lot of departments have their own social media person that's their only job is to create content and push stuff out on social media. But I think it's really changed in a positive way for the most part, just the way we communicate. You know, we want to be the one to get our story out first before the media. So you use social media to do that now. You know, it helps you build relationships with your fans, you know, maybe better than you could before, because you can kind of take them behind the scenes a little bit easier than before. So there's a lot of positives. You know, it's also very easy for fans, alumni, and all those different people to, you know, comment and share their opinions, which can be positive or can be negative. So it's made that part easier, but it's definitely a huge part of my job and everyone that I work with on a daily basis. It's a very critical part of what we do.
I think it's key. There's so many reasons that we use social media in our softball program. One, the recruiting process. So we can find recruits on social media. We can communicate with them on social media. We check their social medias to see, hey, is this a kid that we really want to bring into our program? It's great while the athletes are here, our fans get to know our softball players quite a bit through questions, through what they've done. We get our scores out there. Parents can follow along, friends, family can meet our girls and can kind of get to know our program. It's helped with our recruiting process too. Athletes can see what kind of program we are building here and what we do. Our community service is really important to us, academics, things like that. And so we can get that all out on social media for recruits to see, parents, family, friends, all those things. So I think it is one of the biggest things. I mean, our camp numbers this year, just solely from social media, don't put it anywhere else. And we have grown by like 10-20% in our camp numbers from year to year just because of social media. So it's a great tool and something we try to utilize. We actually have a social media calendar. And so we have it all on there and we make sure that we have all our posts figured out and things like that so that we can keep that content up to date and keep it moving too. So
what advice would you give a high school student who might be looking at a similar career to yours? Do you want to take that first, Katie?
Sure. I think just getting out there and kind of seeing what different opportunities there are. As Amy said, you know, she wanted to do something in athletics, but wasn't quite sure what. There's so many different jobs that you can do in athletics, from athletic director, trainers, assistant coaches, sports information, compliance. There's so many different areas. And knowing which one you exactly want, I think the best way is to find a local college around you and see if you can do some internships there or some job shadowing or things like that to figure out really where you want to go. And from there, it's just building your skills in your resume and figuring out what is going to help me get those jobs. And like I said, that volunteer or getting out there and meeting people and making connections, I think is the best way to figure out what you want to do and then get into our career paths.
Echo kind of a lot of what Katie said. You know, that the biggest thing for me that I always tell high school students is, you know, volunteer, you know, job shadowed, you know, when you graduate and move to college, you know, do internships in the athletics department, you know, explore all the different areas, because there are, I mean, pretty much anything you want to go into, there's probably some area that has a connection in athletics. Even if you like numbers, there's the business office too. So, you know, there's a lot of different areas. So just, you know, gaining that experience, but also, you know, building those relationships, like Katie said, and getting your foot in the door was the biggest thing for me, because I was amazed each time I was, you know, looking for a different position, you know, all the connections and people who knew the people that, you know, at the places I was applying to. So just it's a small world. A lot of people know each other. So just getting that experience and building those connections is key.
Great. One other question that I do have is, how do you see athletic teams and sports impacting local economies? So it can be anywhere from those junior teams to bigger national sports teams, whatever it may be, but how do you see that impacting a local economy? And we'll start with Joe and go to Ted and Keith on this question and kind of let you guys take turns there. So Joe, let's start out with you.
Well, 2 years ago, we were fortunate enough to be named the Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year, which is something we're really proud of here because it doesn't have anything to do with our performance on the ice, right? It's not about our record or championship or anything like that. And it's about the impact that we have in our community. And it's significant. And as a part of that process, when we won that award, was that they did a recent economic impact study on the Waterloo Blackhawks, and that data resulted in an economic impact study that the Waterloo Blackhawks generate an annual economic impact of over $2.4 million on a yearly basis. That doesn't include camps that we host during the summer, which is a big part of what we do, and it's a major part of our revenue and our business. We have campers from all over the country that come in and stay for 4 days at a time, working with our coaches and former players throughout the summer. And those camps alone generate almost $400,000. So it's extremely significant. And when you look at the quality of life in the Cedar Valley here, the Waterloo Blackhawks are a big part of that. It's an attraction that's important when you're looking to keep people living here, working here, et cetera. And it's probably a message that we don't talk enough about when we're out in the community, about what it means for our economy, about what it means for our players interacting with students and in schools. And the pandemic has made it harder than ever for us to get out and talk about these things. We used to do a whole lot more with our players in the community, whether it was participating in 5K runs for nonprofits or having our students physically in schools working with students. So it's become even more challenging today, but the economic impact is significant for these teams in these markets, and probably something that we need to do a better job of telling that story.
Ted.
I agree with Joe. When we were in the jaws of Major League Baseball contraction, and Burlington and Clinton, along with 41 other clubs, were on the chopping block. I know I got a call from the governor's office, and they wanted some numbers for economic impact for us in Burlington, and dealt with the Iowa Department of Economic IDEA or whatever. So it wasn't even a impact statement that I put out. Gave him the numbers, and he came back, and at the time, it was in 2019 numbers, it was 6.5 million. And that blew me away, absolutely blew me away. Now, if you think Clinton had the 6.5, imagine what it's like there with the Colonels, and I'm just talking baseball here. No offense to Joe with hockey, but the Colonels or the River Bandits in the Quad Cities, or just the I Cubs. I mean, there's astronomically probably, but it was a source of pride. And now that we're in the Prospect League, we're in a college wood bat league, so we're dealing with some of the same age kids that Joe is dealing with, and we have some of the same discussions and mannerisms and some of the same issues. But now with getting cut from 70 to 30 games, although we did lead the league, Prospect League in attendance, I'm guesstimating, and I haven't done one for 21. I'll be honest with you. With COVID, to me, it's numbers. It doesn't represent. I think 219 was a good moderator of a good level of where we were. I don't even think we're back to full strength. I mean, I think everybody agrees to that. There's so much stuff going on that we just try to do what we can, and with the help with the EIDL loans and the PPP, we're doing it. But again, we're community owned and have been around since 1937. So there's a push to make profit. Okay, we're still a C Corp. We are not a nonprofit. So we have some inherent things with that, but it's still a business. We still have to run it, but we also run it with the community in mind. And like Joe, we were honored with an award, a community award from the Clinton Regional Development Corporation as kind of the company of the year for our struggles and what we were able to accomplish in 2020. No games, but we still had like 52 events here. We packed the place with concerts, and we were one of the first ones in the state to, Governor Reynolds was kind enough to buy my plan in terms of the space and the masks and the disinfectant and things like that. And we pulled it off, and we have the space to do it. So the economic impact is a number, but I think it's what you do in the community. I think it's what you do with your players. It's what you do with your staff. It's, again, we have the fortunate luck of being in the community now, 84, starting our 85th year. And that level, we just can't, we now have to keep up that reputation of what we do in the community and how we work. And it helps tremendously having community ownership, because then everybody has a piece of the pie. Okay, everybody has that stake. Nobody wants to see the club leave when Major League Baseball pulled the rug. So we worked our tails off to ensure that we were able to keep baseball here. And you know, in today's economy, it's tough as ever. You know, it's not baseball teams, it's not hockey teams, it's every business. I mean, you see businesses folding because they can't get employees, they can't, the supply chain issues. I mean, there is a myriad of problems out there. But you know, if we're able to provide that little slice of that quality of life that Joe mentioned, and some enjoyment, and keep it lighthearted, and not charge, you know, $10 for a beer, or in the kids' cases, you know, $5 for a soda, or whatever. You know, that's important too, because people's dollars are being stretched thinner and thinner and thinner as we go. So it's economic impact, but I think it's the society and the community impact as well that really you can't put a price tag on, but to me is just as valuable, and even more so than any economic impact that we would have from a money standpoint.
In Chicago or Minneapolis, it's billions of dollars. In a place like Des Moines, it's tens of millions of dollars. And we've seen in the past couple of years, it's not just the players and coaches or even the management that comes to mind. It's the vendor selling hot dogs and beers. It's the person who works at the concession stand or sells the gear out in the lobby. All of those things are an economic impact, and they're all significant. There's a reason that if an NFL team or an NBA team or Major League Baseball team or NHL team, if they come up for sale or they're talking about movement, any city in America that doesn't have one of those will bend over backwards to try to bring those teams into their city and into their economy. And Joe and Ted are right. It's not just because of the economic impact. A lot of it is the community pride, which even comes down to a local level. Your high school football game on a Friday night is the community coming together and standing next to each other and catching up on the week. And that happens in basketball games and in hockey games and in baseball stadiums in the spring and summer. And that is so important. I mean, you look at what you look at the mental health of many people that went away for many reasons in the past couple of years, and one of them was just missing the community at events like this. So I think we have, or should have, a newfound appreciation for how much it means and to how many people. And when you look back at 9/11 or the end of the pandemic, arenas and stadiums, those become places to congregate as a community and come together and stand as one. And it's more important. There are many things about sports that get too much importance, but the importance of community coming together, if anything, I think that's underrated.
Amen, Keith. Amen.
It's important. Make sure you're working hard in school, because grades, if you want to be an athlete or you want to get a job, I think grades tell a lot about people and what their discipline and determination and stuff is. So school is good.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time today. I think you guys have done a wonderful job of highlighting what you do and the importance of these careers, and just the variety of things that are out there. You really have hit on so many different things and so many different possibilities and options for these students. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anne and just do some final wrap-ups.
Yes, thank you again to our panelists. Your passion for what you do has really come out in our discussion. Your advice, your encouragement to students to really be mindful of building their own brand, think about what they're putting out, and how that will reflect them as they enter the workforce is very insightful and helpful. And if you would like more opportunities like you just watched, make sure you connect with us on the Iowa Intermediary Network website, which is iowain.org. So thank you again for joining us today.